Hello, welcome back. Yes, it's all about design work, and we're working on Dungeons and Dragons, dealing with backgrounds. Would you believe it? Yes, I started this process and I'm going to continue, try to get them knocked out, and then work on the next thing. Yes, lots to do, never enough time. I've got a poll. Feel free to take part in that poll if you want to. I'll also say, grab some food, some drink, make sure you're comfortable, and we'll go from there. This is probably going to take me a good chunk of time, but it will be less than 2 hours because I have to go to work. So that's a good thing. And I'm probably going to try and get 3 done today if I can. I'm hoping so. Anyway, let's get started, shall we? Hi, welcome to How to D&D. My name is Fred Weller, and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. Talking about Dungeons and Dragons 5e Modern D&D 2024-2014, but more 2024, and we're looking at the criminal background, and I believe I will get the entertainer done as well. For those of you who are unaware, there have been some changes to those backgrounds, changes that I don't personally like, and I know a lot of other people don't like, and I know my group doesn't like. So I thought, let's fix it. And that's what I'm doing here. And we've done 3 already, as it happens, and I'll show you those in a second. But I think the first question I want to ask before I go any further is, I want to ask you how you would go about fixing or building the background for the criminal. Like, how would you go about doing that? Sorry about that. Okay, so here we go. Hashtag. How would you build the criminal background for D&D 2024? Okay, there we go. It's in the chat, and I will flick you over to my document that I have already started working on, and I will come back to chat in a second. Well, not in a second, after I've gone through the criminal, right? What I would do. Anyway, here's the document. Almost immediately, you'll see draft 2. That's because I have made some changes. So today is the 6th of November in New Zealand. So 6th of November. Why am I not here wearing a hat? It is because it's so hot. Otherwise, yeah, quite often the reason for wearing the hat is because it's cold. Or my head is cold. Anyway, from the modern background, I'm actually going to be removing something. I'm actually taking out the ability score increases and making it optional, so they're not attached to species, background, or class. I know they are attached to backgrounds right now. I don't think that is actually a great idea. I don't want backgrounds, and neither do my group, to have them a optimization issue, frankly. The other thing is the feat, the starting feat. Optional again. Origin starting feats, I'm not making them part of the background. I'm removing them. Okay. The only things that they're going to stay is the background characteristics, which is personality traits, the flaw or weakness that they have, their goal, and their loyal relationship, whatever relationships they have. Skill proficiencies will remain. Tool proficiency, languages will go here. The languages that you pick, your background feature. So the old background feature from 2014 is getting reimagined, and it'll be around having advantage on something you're proficient with, whether that's a tool or a skill, whichever seems the most appropriate, and then equipment up to 50 gold pieces worth of gear that isn't armor or weapons. Quite deliberately done on my part. I want them to be backgrounds rather than you were a hero before you were a hero. Like, doesn't make any sense. Right. Or I was a fighter before I was a guard. Or was I a guard before I was a guard? Anyway, we did last week the Acolyte, which is here and is on Patreon. We also did the Artisan, and we also did the Charlatan. And we are going to be working on at least 2, possibly 3. So here is the criminal. Since we have labelled it criminal and entertainer, we'll start with the criminal. So cut this, move it up to the top so I don't have to flick it past everything. It'll take it out of alphabetical order, I'm aware, but it's just going to be easier in terms of flicking back and forth for now, and I'll rearrange things later. Okay, all right. You eke out a living in dark alleyways, cut piercing, or burgling shops. Okay, all right. Perhaps you were part of a small gang of like-minded wrongdoers. Blah blah blah. Okay, so this is the narrative bit that Wizards of the Coast is using. I'm going to just get rid of that. I'm going to get rid of that, and I'm just going to put in here criminal. Define. Just define. I just need a sentence. A person who committed a crime. Okay. That's all it needs to be. And then, of course, we can expand it out if we need to, but that is the basic gist of it. So it's very, very broad. Paste here. Okay. An individual. Individual who commits crime. That'll do. Very, very short sentence. Don't want to get confused. As I said, we're taking out the ability score increases. If you're going to use them, they're not going to be attached to the background at all. Bye-bye. See you later. And the feet. And I believe, yes, alert was the feet. Bye-bye. Gone as well. Okay. So our first thing that we need to include is the important thing, which is our background characteristics. So the player characters will sort that out themselves. They only have to come up. There's 4 different areas. I've tried to make it very, very clear what the heck we're talking about here. So we go paste. And then after that is skill proficiencies, which, okay, so we're doing skill proficiencies next. I think full reign in terms of what you do with your personality trait, your flaw, your goal, and your relationship. That's just up to the players. So you figure that out. It's your problem. We don't need to give you a table or anything like that. I'm sure you'll be able to think of something. Whether you do that at character creation or later, I couldn't care less. Okay. All right, so that's the skills, tool proficiency. They've got here thieves tools. I actually kind of feel like that's probably right on the money, but we'll just highlight that. And then was it languages? Languages just gain common and one other language of your choice. Nothing fancy or crazy. Oops. Ooh, don't load anything. I don't do that. What do I press? Okay, try that again. Copy. I'm going to come back and just work through and make sure we've got the right skills and the right tools. But I just want to get most of the bulk of this in so we can see that we are getting... Okay, so here we go. The Acolyte feature is that, but it might be different for the criminals. So we'll go copy and paste. Okay, all right. So it's not going to be the Acolyte, it'll be the criminal feature. You have advantage on, I don't know what it'll be. We'll figure that out in a second. It might be the Thieves' Tools, it might be something else, it might be a skill. Okay, next. We need to look at equipment. That is our normal process there. Okay, so we'll bring that up. I'm kind of struggling with the change in weather. We're getting very summery weather, and then we get really cold, wet weather. And so there's also an outbreak of measles in New Zealand right now. So you can imagine there's going to be a lot of people getting sick. I'm hoping I'm not one of them. But truly I know that it's slowly attacking me. Something is. I don't know what it is, but something's going on. Okay, so I'm going to go here. All right, so let's start off with the skills. If I take that, move that around, okay. So skills is under, what is that? It's in the ability score improvements, the skills are listed there. Just so that I can see them in front of me and sort of systematically mark off the things that I think it's not or it is that should be included for this. 171, because we've done skills a little differently sometimes. Okay, so skills. Here we go. All right, so the basic structure that we have here is, with the skill proficiencies, it could be 2 specific skills or it could be languages. I don't feel like a criminal is necessarily going to have more languages, but skills make sense. They've selected sleight of hand and stealth. I'm not against them, but let's have a look at the other ones and see what else we could use if we wanted to that might be related to being a criminal. Okay, criminal activity, athletics. I don't think that it follows that you would necessarily have that as a skill. I suppose you could. Good for running away, I guess, and leaping over stuff and jumping and stuff, jumping over fences so you can run away from whoever's chasing you. Acrobatics. Criminal, it's so broad in terms of, if it was something like a cat burglar, and that was the very specific cat burglar, then I would say maybe acrobatics might be a bit more suitable. But sleight of hand and stealth are looking pretty solid. Sleight of hand, as we discussed last time when we were doing backgrounds, is very much tailored towards sort of the larceny, where you were doing thievery-like things, like picking locks or disabling a trap or picking a pocket. It's very much leaning into it's rather than fine motor control necessarily. Sleight of hand seems to be more about just being stealing stuff. So stealth, I think a criminal does need to have stealth to a certain degree, absolutely. So I can see that as being something that would make sense if you're committing crimes. What else is there? Arcana. I don't think Arcana is necessarily a skill that you would have. History. Not necessarily connected to being a criminal. Investigation. I suppose there's an argument that you would need to be able to inspect stuff as a criminal to figure out the best way to steal stuff. But again, I don't think necessarily we need to worry about that. Nature and religion, I don't think so. Animal handling. Again, I don't think we need to worry about that one either. Insight. I despise the insight skill, so I'm just going to ignore it and just imagine that there's no such word that starts with I in the skills section. Medicine, I don't think it fits for medicine. Perception, I guess there's an argument that could be made that perception is the one to go for, but I'm going to leave that, we'll put that in brackets. Is it more important than being stealthy and being sleight of hand? I think I'm inclined to lean towards the other two rather than perception. The other problem with perception is it tends to be the super skill. Like it's the skill that everybody wants to have. And if you can pick it up in a background, perception tends to be useful for anything. So maybe it's just too general. But anyway, I'll put in brackets for now. Survival. I suppose there is although when it comes to survival, I feel like survival leans heavily into the aspect of survival in the wilderness. And criminals, do they really need to worry about that quite so much? It feels like it's used more for tracking, hunting wild game, guiding a group through frozen wastelands, identifying signs of owlbears, weather prediction. Yeah, I just don't think it's quite right. So we'll leave that alone. Deception, though, for a criminal is actually pretty important. So let's put down here deception. And I actually think that deception is probably more important than perception with regard to the criminal background. Next, intimidation. I've met many people who have had criminal behaviour or come out of the correction system, and yes, they can be incredibly intimidating. Not all of them, but some of them. Do I think that it's absolutely a skill that makes sense that you have it there? No, not really. I think we can leave that alone. Persuasion. I almost feel like the problem with the criminal is like the same. The criminal and the charlatan are very, very similar. So we've got to be careful we don't step on into that realm too much. I'm going to leave the persuasion thing alone. I've come across a lot of people who are very criminal minded, but let's say that they're more the charlatan rather than the criminal itself. Well, yeah. So persuasion, it's a bit iffy, I think. Performance, again, a little bit iffy. So what I would say, though, is I think that this is probably the one we get rid of. But I could see an argument to say that you pick 2 from a selection of 3, which would be a little bit different to how it's structured for the other backgrounds. Because I can see an argument that could be made to say that if you're a criminal, really deception, stealth, more important, or deception, sleight of hand more important, or stealth and sleight of hand more important, or stealth and deception more important. I feel like those 3 skills are probably the most close to the narrative of the criminal. So I'm gonna mark this down to see what you guys say in a second, but select 2 from the following. And we'll put here sleight of hand, stealth, and deception. Did I do that right? And deception. Okay. And we put here full stop. Put this in a bracket. That, I think that's going to go. I think that we don't need that. I can see that as being, I mean, to be honest, I think the selection of skills for the criminal is pretty close to where it needs to be. A little bit of refinement. I feel like deception is one of those things that is, sometimes criminals don't necessarily use stealth, but they use a lot of sleight of hand and a lot of deception. So I can see there being an opportunity to have a choice here. Anyway, let's go into tools, and I believe I need to have something to mark it so I don't keep having to go back, try to find the page again. So I've got that already marked, so that's good. And then we're going to, not spells, we're going to gear, isn't it? To look at the various tools that we've got available to us. Tool proficiencies, here we go. It's on page 154. So what are the sort of skills, tools that would be appropriate in this case? Each background has 1 tool proficiency. Musical instrument, gaming set, artisan tool. Okay, so what is the most appropriate thing for a criminal in terms of a tool? Alchemist supplies? No. Brewer's supplies, calligrapher's supplies, carpenter's tools, cartographer's tools, cobbler's, cook, glassblower, jeweler, leather, mason, painter, potter, smith, tinker, weaver, woodcarver. No. Disguise kit for a criminal. Forgery kit. Okay. Do you know, I think there's an argument to be said that you could include the disguise kit in the forgery kit. Gamer's set, I think is too far off the beaten mark. If we're dealing with a gambler, maybe that would make, I think that's the only background that makes sense for that. Dice set, dragon chess set, playing card set, 3 dragon ante set. What do you got here? Herbalism, no. Musical instrument, I don't think they are. Navigator's tools, poisoner's kit. I mean, it's such a broad background. I think there's room to have a selection of 4 and you pick 1. I think we could do that. I think that would be select. Let's do this. Paste. Because when you say criminal behavior, there are so many different things that could mean. So let's put down disguise kit, forgery kit, thieves' tools, poisoners. If you were a murderer, and you poison people, I can see that. Thieves' tools. So select 1, not 2. Okay, so that's that bit done. And then in terms of the cost, the poisoner's kit is 50. Thieves' tools are 25. We did something with, we had a couple of different builds based on what kit you grabbed. We have the forgery kit, which is 15. We have the disguise kit, which is 25. So that makes it a little bit more difficult in terms of packages. Okay. So this is where I think it gets a little bit more difficult. I think the problem with the criminal background as it is when we want, if we go with this concept where you get a choice of 2 of the 3 skills and 1 tool proficiency out of 4 possible tool proficiencies, the language is not a problem. It's going to be the same for every background. I don't think that needs to change. But the criminal feature is where the problem lies. So how do we structure it so that it would work? Which is the thing that is going to be we lean into more for the criminal? Is it sleight of hand? It could be. Maybe as a criminal, really what you specialize is picking pockets or picking locks, sneaking in there and grabbing stuff. Maybe you're, when it comes to stealth, you're about just being opportunistic and being very stealthy and stealing stuff that's left out in the open, or just waiting until somebody's not around and doing things in the dark. Maybe you're more of a cat burglar criminal. Maybe you are more into deceiving people. Whether that is creating a distraction or lying to people. I know that feels like it's leaning into the charlatan, but there is a bit of crossover with the criminal, with the charlatan, if you ask me. Unless we change the narrative and the name of criminal to something else. And there's definitely a place for that. So I could see you potentially having advantage on any one of those. Disguise kit, forgery kit, poisoner's kit. Maybe you're a murderer. You kill people by poisoning them. You don't have to worry about fighting people and being basically already an adventurer or a superhero, or a hero character, because you don't get in people's faces. You do it from the shadows by stealthily lacing their food with poison or their drink and then killing them that way. Kind of like an assassin. Disguise kit, disguising yourself, and then you lean more into sleight of hand and deception rather than stealth. Forgery, like creating documents and so forth. I think there's a lot of room for movement. So I think we need to make the criminal feature with advantage very flexible. You have advantage on one skill or tool proficiency that you have advantage on. Okay, so let's see. How do we word this? Just related. Okay, you have advantage on checks related to one skill or tool proficiency you gain from this background. Like I said, I think the criminal is such a broad category. I think we need to leave a lot of opportunity open for, leaning into, I want to have advantage on the disguise kit or the forgery kit or the poisonous kit or the thieves tools or the sleight of hand or the stealth. Not all of them, just one area of it. So you could say that gives you a lot of leeway. The problem with building a background like this is it could wind up being a go-to all the time. It's much more attractive than all the other backgrounds. I think in playtesting it'll be interesting to see if it winds up being the thing that people always pick. You have advantage on checks related to one skill or tool proficiency you gain from this background. Okay, I think that's probably the best way to write it for it to work. Otherwise, the criminal background needs to be really rewritten because it's so broad in its nature. Okay, so now we've done that, I think we need to address the problem of kits. I think there's a huge problem here with the kits. So let's go down past artisan to charlatan, because I did a kit for this. I did two kits basically. So let's take let's take these and go copy. I'm pretty sure the reason for, so I think I'm going to have to make up 4 different kits depending on which disguise tool proficiency you decide to pick. I think that's probably the easiest way to deal with this. Doesn't sound like it's that easy if you ask me, but I think I'm going to have to do that, unfortunately. So let's go paste. Now, I don't think it's necessarily going to be fine clothes that we have. It might be something else. That's the tricky bit, because otherwise the kits tend to look more like the charlatan. I don't want them to look like the charlatan. So let's go here. A, B, C, or, oh no, C, D, or E. No. Or D. Let's go or D. I think that's probably the better way to go. Or D. Okay. Next. So based off that, so now I just need to look at the various things that we have. So the problem with the kit for the poisoner is that it's very expensive. Very, very, very. So AB. So we're going to get rid of this. So this is going to have to be, I think this will be option C. So it goes disguise kit, forgery kit, copy, and then it's that thing, drop it in, paste, and the poisonous kit is 50 gold pieces, so that's all you have. Poisonous kit, nothing else, no gold, take all that away, gone. So that's your choice. It would be not option B, it would be option C. It's expensive. Do we need to give you anything else? Do we need to give you clothes and common clothes? And let's be generous. I don't want them nude. Okay, so and there we go. Use the other and okay, common clothes. What we need to do next is the next one, which is the thieves tools. Now thieves tools are 25, And I think the disguise kit is 25 as well. So it's kind of going to look a little bit like that, isn't it? For the other one, which will be a D. So we go copy, paste. How much time am I using up? Am I running behind? Not yet. But I am obviously spending way more time on this than would be sensible. Let's try at least get it right, though. Right? That's the whole thing. Is let's get the thing set out correctly. So thieves tools. Okay, fine clothes. It doesn't have to be fine clothes. Again, I think we can probably wangle that into something else. Potentially have 5 GP left after. So we've got option A, disguise kit and stuff. B, forgery kit and stuff, and a bit of gold. C, poisonous kit and common clothes. You've got no gold. D, that option there. Okay, all right, so I guess the question is, if that's what we've got, is there any other gear or stuff that would be sensible to include to sort of distinguish it from something else? There is obviously a criminal background in the original 2014 Player's Handbook. So what are there any bits of gear that you got that was any different? A crowbar. Okay, so my general feeling is a crowbar makes a lot of sense. I almost feel like a crowbar is a thing that you would definitely have. Poisonous kit and the common clothes, we don't have to worry about C. Option C is full. But I can certainly see there being thieves' tools and a crowbar. I would add a crowbar here. Absolutely. I think that would make a lot of sense because you're obviously trying to break into stuff. You little harlot. You little thief. Okay, so let's say we need to add in crowbar and disguise kit crowbar. Okay, that means that the amount of money we can spend on stuff changes. What else? A set of dark common clothes. I couldn't care less with the clothes. A common white, black. That's up to you. We don't need to say that stuff. You can decide on the colour, including a hood. Again, pretty much unimportant. A pouch, though, I could see somebody who is using thieves' tools and... oh, hang on. I've put it in the wrong place, haven't I? Sorry. That's disguise kit, and this is supposed to be going down the bottom, isn't it? In the wrong place. Should be here. Paste. There we go. So, crowbar... a pouch. I guess there's a place for getting a pouch. It's not a standout thing in terms of gear, I think, for any of these. But let's adjust our calculation based on the fact that we've given them a crowbar for that package. And how much does that leave you if we take out crowbar cost? For the life of me, where is crowbar? Crowbar. My eyes are not working with the glasses on. Looking at this. Climbers kit, crowbar. It's 2 gold. And fine clothes under fine. It's 15. Okay. Well, let's get rid of the fine. Well, no, we don't have to get rid of the fine clothes. We can just drop this. It's only 2 gold. So let's just make that 3 gold. And keep the fine clothes. 3. Did I do it in the right place? Did it in the wrong place again, didn't I? Okay. Okay, there. So it's actually 3 down here because we're adding the crowbar cost, so that comes to 3. If we have the fine clothes signaling. Okay. So now let's go through the equipment and just have a little look and see if there's any gear that stands out. How's my time going? I've spent way more time than I would have liked on this. But this, I knew that criminal was going to be difficult, and so we're going to have to spend a bit of time on it. We'll get to the entertainer, don't worry. Abacus. No, I don't think it's appropriate. Acid vial. No, we don't need that. Alchemist fire. No. Ammunition. No. Antitoxin. Not really. Oh, yeah, no, it's not possible because it's too expensive. Arcane Focus is not necessary. Backpack. Now, I'll let you guys figure that out yourself with whatever gold you get with your starting gear. Ball bearings. Does anybody here really need to have ball bearings? No. I'll leave that as a personal choice thing. Barrel, basket, bedroll, bell, blankets, block and tackle, book, glass bottle, no, bucket, caltrops. Do you know, I feel like we should add caltrops to every single one of these packages, apart from the one that's already maxed out. Because caltrops, when it comes to being a criminal, are just too useful to not have. I was like, you really need to have them. So let's say caltrops. Caltrops. Do I need to go capital? I don't need to go capital, do I? Caltrops. And if I go in caltrops, it's only 1 gold, so I only have to adjust this by 1. That drops down to 4. That's fine. And then the next one, a forgery kit, we can go down to 14 and give them forgery kit. Yeah, if they need to escape, because escaping is something you're going to be doing a lot of, I suspect. You little thief, you. Caltrops. Okay, little criminals. And then the C1 we can't do anything with, but the thief, the crowbar, we can probably add caltrops as well, which is 1 gold. So we'll make that 2 gold, and we add in the caltrops. Crowbar, caltrops, yeah. So caltrops. Crowbar. Yep, that's better. I think that looking a lot more in line. Candle, no, that's a personal choice. Case, no. Chain, no. Chalk, no. Chest, climber's kit, too expensive for most of them. What is it? Climbers. Ooh, that's a good question. Climbers? I'm not sure. I am not sure. No. No, clothes, we've already covered that. We'll leave the clothes the way they are. Disguise kit and then fine clothes. It's easier to dress down than to dress up, so I think the fine clothes is probably the smart right way to go if you're going with the disguise kit sort of setup. Forgery, again, you probably need to look the parts to be able to sell your documentation. Component pouch, no. Crowbar, we've already discussed that. Druid stuff, no, none of that. Fishing tackle, no. Flask, tankard. Grappling hook. Grappling hook's not a bad idea. I feel like a grappling hook is a very useful item for whom? It's the last one. That would pretty much use up all of your stuff though. So do we leave them with a little bit of gold rather than just use up all of their money? You don't get a rope though. That's the thing. You're still going to have to buy a rope, and they can, and most people do. Caltrops, crowbar. I feel like a grappling hook is probably a pretty... Well, no, it could go either way. I think if you have thieves' tools, you have to have a crowbar. Caltrops are really about your ability to escape your poor decision making. Hammer, ink, holy water, hunter's trap, no. Ink, lantern, bullseye, magnifying glass, mess kits, manacles, parchment, perfume, pitons, rations, sack, sealing wax, shovel, signal whistle. I think all of these are things you need to make personal choices yourself. I don't think they need to be connected to these backgrounds. I think we got it. Took a little while. It took me about 40 minutes to muddle through that. Let's go and see what you guys have said in the chat about the criminal and how you would go about building it. See what you have to say about what I've done. This is the first draft, people, so don't get too attached to stuff. Prepare, cook, and survive. Hello, definitely investigation. I don't think so. I honestly, I don't think that's... You know... I just don't think that it's absolutely necessary. Investigation sounds good too. Plan A, Plan B. We could include it, instead of them being 3 choices, we could make 4 choices. Investigation. Cartographer's tools for mapping. Why would you do mapping if you're a criminal? I don't see how that. I don't understand that. I don't know how that fits. I can kind of understand where you're going with the investigation. Yeah, I know none of you have said perception, but then I know that the reality is that's too much, right? Caltrops soaked in sewage. Hello, Pale Rider. How are you? Zen Grey. I gotta think about that a little bit more. Do I really feel like investigation is a huge factor? Is it even a thing that we need to worry too much about? Investigation, clues. I feel like if we were making a background that was investigator or detective, then I would go investigation for sure. But I don't feel like investigation is necessarily a thing. I have to think about it a little bit more. So you've got here athletics and investigation. I think that's too specific to one area. We remember that the criminal background is so broad, so we actually have to make it broad. I'm not against the idea of opening up the investigation thing and putting in another one. I don't want to put in perception because it's just a little bit silly. Ocean 11. Yeah. Cartographers. No, I'm not convinced by that, Pale Rider. I think the mapping stuff, I don't think. But let's add in investigation, because I can see an argument for that. I can definitely see an argument for the likes of, what do you call it? Perception, but that would be the case with anything. Investigation. Sleight of hand, stealth, and deception. Select two from the following. So you've got 4 choices. I'm going to get rid of the perception thing. I think that is too much. We wind up building... I'm not trying to build one background to rule them all, so let's not do that. That's bad design and poor thinking, so I'm not doing that. So let's see. I think what we'll do is we'll add in the thing that you had suggested in terms of investigation. We'll see how that plays out. So yes. Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it, with the background criminal, is it's so broad, so it's hard to sort of, how do you frame it? You know, so, yeah. Difficult. It's a difficult one. But I think the key skills are kind of there now. We'll see how that plays out. Anyway, I've done this. I'm going to show you what I have very quickly. I'm going to move on to the next one because we've got way too much to do and not enough time. So I have added in your suggestion. I don't know if you can see it. I've added in your suggestion to include investigation, sleight of hand, stealth, and deception as the choices out of 2. Get 2 of these so you can kind of tailor make your criminal. I'm not going to add in the cartographer's tools for the tool proficiency. I'm just going to go with the disguise kit, the forgery kit, the poisonous kit, and the thieves tools. I think they are far more in line with the narrative of the criminal than cartographer's tools. I think that's probably a red herring. It's way too narrow. I think these are better selections here. And then we've got that's pretty good. The criminal feature is nice and tidy. And then our equipment, we actually have 4 packages to select from. Okay. Yeah, that ought to do it. That should be fine. Let's deal with the next one, which is, I believe, done the charlatan. So we're doing the entertainer, aren't we? Let me entertain you. Let's go cut, and we'll bring it up. I am hoping to get to the farmer today, people. I really am. Let's hopefully this next one isn't going to take us a long time. I'm not going to promise you. You never know with these things. So, back to the chat. Let's drop in our next question. We need to take that, and we're doing the entertainer next, aren't we? Yes. Paste. Let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of that. And so how would you build the entertainer background? That didn't look right. Let's try that again. Entertainer background. Okay. Next task. We spent way more time, 45 minutes on just working through that. Right. It's crunchy time. Entertainer. So again, let's get a definition. Nice and simple. Entertainer. I will leave Wally DM to fill this out. Entertainer. So there's lots of different types of entertainers. So we're going to just put in here and sorry. Oh, that's not working. Let's undo that. Sorry. Okay. Gotta do that again. Oh yeah, better. An individual whose job is to entertain others. Paste, whose job is to entertain, such as a singer, dancer, or comedian. I think we can add in a couple of such as a or comedian. Can you think of something else that I am missing here under entertainer? You let me know. I'll add it in. Okay. We're going to take out, as I said, ability score improvements. They're going to just be not attached to background, species, or classes, and they'll be optional. It's up the top. I've already showed you that stuff. We're going to get rid of the feat musician because, again, I think that's probably a little bit too narrow, and we don't want to use feats. We're going to use a different structure. And then we need to just drop in this as our first thing. You get to choose your personality trait, flaw, and other bits and pieces. That is not right, so let's do that again. Oh, what did I do? Did I just mess with something? I did. Somehow I've managed to screw. Okay, it's over here. That's what it is. Just go back. Okay, that's that. So free reign on that one. And then after background, we need to do the skill proficiencies. So that's fine. Let's bring that up. Am I showing you what I'm doing? Yes, I am. Good. Thank God for that. I'll have a trot through that. Acrobatics performance. Performance, I think, is the most obvious one. I guess it's the other stuff, right? Tool proficiencies. Tool proficiencies, one kind of musical instrument. Yeah, this might be hard. Entertainer. Okay, all right. So tool proficiency, language. We need to include language. Copy. Skill, tool proficiency, language. Paste. Yep. And then we want our feature, our background feature for our tool proficiency, which is, let's just grab one that we've already built. Is this going to be quite broad again? God, I hope not. Let's just take this one for now. Copy. And drop it into here. Paste. And then it'll be for the entertainer. Let me see. There we go. You have advantage on. It might wind up being this way again. The entertainer is such a broad thing. It's like it's a little bit tricky to build, if you ask me. And then we have 6 things, so we're going to have equipment as well. So go equipment. Okay, I'm just going to move this back a little bit because it's just a teeny bit close. And then we got that. 2 costumes, a mirror, perfume, traveler's clothes. I feel like, where's their musical instrument? If you're going to give them a musical instrument as a tool proficiency, why are they not getting it? Well, that almost immediately stands out. That's why I've put that in brackets, isn't it? Okay, I did a little bit of homework. Thank God for that. Okay, let's have a look at our first problem. I think the first problem is defining what an entertainer is. So we need to have some examples so we've got a kind of an idea of what the basket is, because this basket is still quite big. What you need is very basic for something like dance and singing are going to be essentially very similar. Actor, at least one of these things makes sense. Comedian, performance, acrobatics probably less important. So I feel like this section here has got a little bit of a hassle going on, and that performance is fine, but acrobatics may not always fit. Why would you need to be acrobatic if you're a comedian? And they actually specify comedian in the definition. Can't remember what it was in the 2014 book. Entertainer is definitely in here. So let's have a look. What do they say? Entertainer. And they give examples of an entertainer. What are the examples? A singer, a storyteller, a poet. Yeah, that's hard. Instrumentalist, so that's a musician. Well, we haven't got musician here. Like, why? A comedian, but we apparently don't have musicians. Singer, dancer. I just noticed actor. Okay. Musician plays some instruments. A juggler. Jester, well, as your comedian. Fire eater, dancer, actor. Well, they actually specify actor. So we've kind of filled it out a little bit more. That actually makes it more difficult. So now that means that it is the skill proficiencies are actually going to be a little bit more complicated in terms of how it needs to be structured for it to work for a background like this. Okay. Let's have a hard think about the best way to do this. I honestly can't think of a very specific way that this needs to be structured. So I think what we'll do is we'll just go back through all of the different skills and see which ones stand out as potentially things you would pick up for these areas of being an entertainer. I think that's probably the only way to do this. But I want to see if you guys have suggested some entertainers that I haven't picked up on. Let's have a look. Acrobats and performers. Acrobatics for pole dancing. Charisma bonus. No, I'm not doing any ability score improvements. I'm not worrying about charisma bonuses or anything like that. Yeah. Entertainer skill, proficiency, deception. I guess if you were saying you are a magician who doesn't actually perform real magic and you're tricking somebody, then deception would kind of make sense, right? An entertainer. But is the dungeon master going to ask for a deception roll or a performance? I feel like they're probably it could go either way. Disguise as well. Hello, Jasper. Jasper is a patron. How you doing? Perception to read the room. The problem, and I've said this before, the problem is I'm probably never going to put perception in to something unless it doesn't feel like I can't put it in. Just because it's the super skill. Like it would be, I don't want a background to become the go-to and the only go-to that players have. because they get perception. So as I design this, I'm designing to stop people from using their min-max brains to build it and use backgrounds the way they're supposed to be, which is as a narrative tool to demonstrate that. You know what I mean? Street magic is sleight of hand. Yes, it could be it. It could be well that. But you could also, as I said, you could use performance. I think it could go either way. It's not a simple sort of pickup at all. Skills is difficult. You have a range of skills. Acrobatics, perception, deception, choose one. Yeah, I might have to give a choice pick 2 from these again. So pick up a number of skills. Yeah, I'm probably going to have to provide a few options, aren't I? I don't think it's going to be easy to go with just lock them down. It's going to be too difficult to do it that way. So we're going to have to provide a couple of options along the way based on what we've got. Okay, let's deal with that. That was useful. Good to look in the chat. Okay, so athletics. I don't think we necessarily need to have athletics, but acrobatics I can see. I suppose there's an argument you could go with, yeah, I need to have that one, but no, we won't do that yet. What we will do is we'll use a similar structure that we did before to the criminal, which is pick 2 of the following. So copy, entertainer, and paste. 2 of the following. So acrobatics is on the list. I can see that. That makes sense. Dancer, acrobatics. Okay, next. Athletics we'll leave alone. Sleight of hand. Magician, I guess you could say if you're an entertainer and you're a magician, then sleight of hand would be a thing. Sleight of hand. Sleight of hand. So we'll add that in. Performance needs to stay, obviously. I think that is its key thing, key skill. Actually, I know what I need to do. I've just realized. I actually need to give you only one selection. I've just realized. Should not leave performance as one you can leave out. You should not be able to leave performance out. Performance and select one of the following, and I'll take performance out of here. Yeah, because you should not be able to leave performance off your skill list if you're an entertainer. It doesn't make any sense. So it doesn't matter whether you're a singer, a dancer, a musician, an actor, a comedian, a magician. Performance has always got to be there. Yeah, I don't think there's any question that you wouldn't be able to convince me otherwise at this point. Next, sleight of hand, stealth. No, I don't think stealth is a factor. Arcana, no. History. I'm trying to think of areas that sort of would make sense that would be history. Not particularly. Investigation, not really. Nature, religion, none of those sort of come to mind. Animal handling. There could be I guess if you are a performer on a horse, you could say that animal handling would be a factor. I almost feel like, yeah, I could see that. I can kind of see that. And an actor writing or doing a performance with animals is a very common thing. I'm going to add it in. Animal handling. Don't freak out if I leave something off that you think should be there, because again, you just change it yourself. And 2, first draft. Insight, going to ignore insight. I think it's a garbage skill. Don't like it. Medicine, no, not related. Perception could be related to anything, so we're going to leave it off because it's too good. Survival, no, that's not really appropriate. Deception, I can see a place for deception in the right circumstances, but I feel like it is leaning too much. I honestly think that sleight of hand is kind of doing that, and so is performance, so I don't think deception is actually necessary. Intimidation, performance, persuasion. No, I think that's fine. I think we're all right. So get performance, either acrobatics, animal handling, or sleight of hand. So that's good enough. That's fine. Okay, right, now we're getting down to tool proficiencies. This is a tricky one, because now we're saying under the entertainer, we're kind of leaning into the musical side, and the entertainer is apparently just going to have a musical instrument. And I think we need to have more of an option here. I think that there is not really very helpful. So let's have a look at our various tool proficiencies and what we could have. If we were an entertainer, what would be the things that we could potentially pick up? Well, all the musical instruments are under 50 gold pieces. Bagpipes being one of the most, lute is the most expensive. So what are the other things that you might have as an entertainer? I don't think toolkit is it's not a huge factor in this. Other than the musical instrument, but maybe there's another one. Okay, let's have a look. So what do we got here? We've got here alchemist supplies, no. Brewer's supplies, no. Calligrapher, no. Carpenter, cartographer, cobbler, cooking utensils, no, not really. Glass blower, jeweler, leather worker, mason, painter, potter, smith, tinker, weaver, woodcarver. I don't think any of those. Disguise kit and forgery, no. Gaming set. Now they've got here dice sets, dragon chess sets, playing cards, 3 dragon ante. They're not, I mean, you could, but I don't think they are absolutely required as a necessity if you're an entertainer of some kind. Herbalism kit, no. Musical instruments, navigation tools, poisonous kit, thieves tools. The only tool that sort of leans into this is singers tend to have musical instruments. Dancers may not. Musician, actor, or comedian. One kind of musical instrument. I think we can add another option, because I don't think there's anything that's particularly strong here. I'm not saying that. No, it's not. Is it really a tool that you would use as an entertainer? Would you have gaming sets? Is it really that important? I just don't. Yeah, this is one that's not very satisfying for me, because I feel like it kind of leans in one direction, and like, do all actors have a musical instrument? Is that how it works? I almost feel like there are some entertainers who wouldn't necessarily have a tool proficiency necessarily at all. I don't know what else to do with this, so I'm just going to put a highlight in yellow and like too hard basket for now and move down. Next. Now here's the problem. We have to start looking at, so you have advantage on checks related to one skill or tool proficiency you gain no, I don't think that's the right way to structure it. I think no matter what type of entertainer you are, the thing that you're really good at is performance. You might specialize in being an acrobatic person who's dancing and so forth, but performance is ultimately the thing that you're really good at. Even if you're using animals in some sort of show, or you're playing a musical instrument, performance is, I think, the no-brainer here. We can't allow too much leverage in terms of that one. I think this is how we structure it instead. It has got to be in that particular area, and that's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to lock it down. Lock it down. paste. Otherwise it's too easy to wind up abusing the background, and that is not what we want. We want it to actually do what it's supposed to do. Performance. Did I write it all down correctly? Performance skill checks. Okay. That is how I'm going to structure it. I think that's the best way. Okay, next. We now have to look at the problem of this. The problem with option A and option B. I don't have a problem with option B because it gives you lots of flexibility in terms of the stuff you get. That's all right. And since you're an entertainer, it could be all sorts of things that you have at your disposal. But if you're going to have a tool proficiency in a musical instrument, then there probably needs to be a musical instrument. There's no point having the proficiency if you don't have the time, the actual tool itself. So there is a problem with structuring this. I don't like the two costumes thing. I think that's complete nonsense. A mirror, a singer, a dancer, okay. A musician, an actor, yeah. Comedian, yes. I can see the mirror. Actually, I think the mirror is a good idea. Perfume, that's really just to make you smell good. Traveler's clothes. So you're really leaning into the idea that you're a traveling person who entertains. Okay. This here, I think, is garbage. I think we get rid of that bullshit. I think that's a nonsense. You might have a costume, but you may not use a costume. It depends on what you're dealing with here. So that could be any number of things. I don't know that I like that at all. Okay, let's get rid of that. The two costumes can go. So I think I'm ready to start trying to crack my way through the mess of equipment that needs to be done for this background. But before we do that, let's go and have a look at chat and see if they have come up with any ideas that I have not thought of. Had happened last time, it might happen again. Let's have a look. Oh, there's a lot going on here. So, okay, so we were talking about the entertainer, acrobatics performance, we've got that done. No, don't worry about charisma bonuses, unimportant, we're not doing that. Entertainer skill, deception. I think we can leave that out. I think performance will cover that. Perception to read the room. No, I've already discussed why we're not doing that. Disguise as well. Again, I think disguise is unnecessary. I don't think that's really. It's not really a disguise. I don't think the disguise kit is actually the thing that I. Oh, I see where you're going. You mean disguise isn't disguise kit as a toolkit. It's not necessarily used that way, but I kind of understand where you're going with that, Jasper. And now I understand where you're trying to go with that. That actually makes kind of some sense. A choice between musical instrument or disguise kit. Because a disguise kit allows you to change your appearance, and as an actor that would be useful. I can see that being useful for a couple of different things actually. That leads into disguise. You might put on whatever makeup and so forth using your disguise kit. If you're a dancer, a singer, a musician, an actor, a comedian, I can see that, you dress up as a clown. I can see that. Actually, that's not a bad idea. Or disguise kit. It's probably the only one that I can, that kind of makes sense. Disguise, oopsies, kit. Did I do it right? I don't know. We'll see. Okay, let's keep going through there. I've added it in. What else am I looking at here? You could have a range of skills. We've done that already. We already have a range of skills. Acrobatics, perception, not doing perception. Already discussed that. And why? Deception, choose one. Performance is definitely there. So number of skills. Yes, we've done that. Be more core. Choose one of the following. Acrobatics, perception. I'm not doing perception. I've said it before. It's a terrible idea to include perception. It's too game breaking. Acrobatics is fine. Deception, I'm going to leave it alone. I think that's unnecessary. Performance has to be there. Street magic is sleight of hand. We've got that already. Disguise kit proficiency. Yeah, okay. Disguise kit for actors. Yeah, I can see actors definitely on the cards. Cards for street magicians. Choose one costume. I honestly think there needs to be a lot more freedom with how you're going to do this, because the problem is that the reality is that by setting such a tight set of parameters in terms of what you get as a entertainer, I see, one costume. Yeah, 2 costumes seems a bit like an overkill. I can see that. 1 costume, as a performer, you would probably have at least 1 costume. Fair enough. I can see that. 2 costumes seems overkill. So how much is a costume? I kind of feel like a costume is, what is a costume? What's the cost on a costume? Oh yeah, costume. There we go. 5 gold. So 5 gold. We're only playing with 5 gold. So let's, if I do that and add that in, make that adjustment. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. I feel like we've kind of, I can write that up, guys. I can definitely write that up. I'm going to put a mark here so I know where I've read up to, because otherwise I'll get lost. And let's go back and tidy this up. So as Jasper was suggesting, 1 kind of musical instrument or a disguise kit. So don't delete it, Fred. Just take that out. Okay. So you get to choose those. That's fine. I'm happy with that. I think that's relatively solid as a way of structuring it, based on what we've got. And you know, the disguise kit can work for a singer who hasn't got a musical instrument. I can see all of that working perfectly fine. So next, that's all fine. Now we're doing gear. So 1 costume. One costume, a mirror, perfume. It's only 5 gold. So I need to just make sure I add all this stuff up so we get to the right number, so we're not over. I don't want to leave you with too little money. I want you to have enough money to go and buy the musical instrument. 11 gold pieces seems kind of garbage. Like, that's not enough to get the job done. So if it's a costume and it's 5 gold, so add 5, plus a mirror. How much is a mirror? A mirror comes, steel mirrors aren't that expensive. They're only 5 gold. So another 5 gold equals 10. Okay, and then if we got perfume, is there a price on perfume in here? 5 gold, so not much. Plus 5, that's 15. Okay, we haven't spent that much. And then traveller's costume, which I get. So it could be travellers or it could be just common. I don't think it necessarily has to be travellers. Travellers is 2 gold. Common clothes is 5. Travellers, let's just go with the travellers clothes. That's fine. That's right. Plus 2. 17. So that's 17 gold pieces for all of that stuff. So why are we only getting 11 gold pieces at the end of this to buy the rest of the bits and pieces we want for our background? You stingy bastards. Even with two costumes, that would have come to 22 gold pieces. Talk about leaving the entertainer in shit creek. That just sucks. So let's take 17. So 50, take away 17. 33. So we might not be able to go and buy bagpipes or something like that, which would suck if you want to play bagpipes. I know, you can buy bagpipes. It's the loot. It's 35 gold pieces. But, you know, if we give you enough money, you've only got to find another 2 gold pieces from your starting gold and you've got your loot. 33 gold pieces. Much better. You need a bit of cash to be able to buy a musical instrument if you're going to play a musical instrument. 33. Much better. Okay. And now we can get rid of this nonsense because you may not be a musical instrument person. You might be a disguised person, so you can have another costume if you really want. Yeah, I think that's probably more sensible. Let's do that. That works better. So you get a lot more money to spend on the other things you'll need, because musical instruments are expensive. Like, you know, there's a couple here. The viol is 30. The bagpipes are 30. You can afford them. You can afford the 25 one. The 35. It's just the lute that's the one you couldn't buy straight out. You would need a little bit of extra money, and it's only 2 gold off. Do we really need to include the perfume? And we take the perfume away and you've got a little bit more. Is perfume something that all actors, comedians, dancers and singers... I feel like perfume is a factor of just making sure that when you're entertaining somebody, they don't want to run away from your smell. Well, let's leave it. I think that's close enough. I think that's good enough. I think entertainer, let's say that's close enough for today. And you got a few options, so it's not hard and fast. And since it's such a broad idea, we've kind of done what we needed to do with that. Not bad. That worked out better than I thought it would. Okay, what's next? Well, I believe if I scroll on down past all these other ones... Oh, look, we've got a farmer. Farmer. Everybody wants to be a farmer. No, they don't. Cut. And up we go. Entertainer. Let's do the farmer. Paste. Okay. So I need to go back to chat. I'm pretty happy with the entertainer. I think the entertainer is looking a lot better now. Much more in line. I would use this to create a street magician who uses cards as a toolkit and sleight of hand. Definitely would use the perfume. Yeah, and you have 33 gold pieces, so you can buy cards if you need to buy cards and other bits and pieces for your magic tricks. So not a problem. No one I know who plays the bagpipes would wear perfume, even if... Yes. Yeah, but I think everybody else might be doing the perfume thing. I don't know. To be fair, it's a first draft. I'm not sure that the perfume is absolutely the most important aspect of being an entertainer either. but it's there. It's there. Let's do the farmer. I'm hoping the farmer is a lot easier to get through. There's no guarantee there is. It's going to work that way, but I am certainly hoping that the farmer is going to be a little bit easier. I would like to get it done today. Farmer. How would you build the farmer background for 2024? Okay, there's my question. Let's go and have a look at this thing and strip it for pieces or parts, eh? Am I in the right place? Yeah, I am. Here we go. We're in. Okay, so we're taking away the ability score improvements because we're just disconnecting it from the background, species, and the classes. It is a variant rule up the top there. Same with feats, toughness. Why have we got toughness for a farmer? What the heck? Well, at least they didn't create a farmer feat, because that would have been funny as. In fact, I would love that shit, because that is some funny stuff. When they made the chef feat, I didn't know whether I wanted to cringe, laugh, or pee myself. Anyway. Let's go with farmer. Define me a farmer. Person who owns or manages a farm. No. Okay, so it's pretty basic stuff. Let's just drop that in there. Okay, paste. And individual. An individual who manages a farm with livestock and crops. Pretty basic, nice and simple. I'll leave the rest to Wally. Wally's going to love me for this. I'll let you write up a paragraph on what the farmer is, what the entertainer is. I'll let you fill that out. I wonder if he's actually going to say yes to this. This is going to be interesting. Okay, so let's take this. This is very generic. Again, I don't think we need to force people into doing it a particular way. Come up with a personality trait, a flaw, a goal, and a relationship. Okay, that's nice and easy. What's next? Next is skill proficiencies. So we've got skill proficiencies here. For a farmer, the problem with farmers, unfortunately, I think the problem with farmers is farmers have so many different skills that to try to capture everything is asking rather a lot. It might not be doable. Fortunately, you're dealing with Fred, and I've never had any problem with offending anybody. I live in New Zealand. There's a lot of farmers here. I don't think they're going to get offended by me. Not the Kiwi farmers. They won't even know that I exist. Okay, so we're going to have language common and one other language of choice. It's pretty generic. Then languages. Then we've got to have the farmer feature, which is going to be the interesting one. Copy. So we're going to drop this down, and then we got other stuff here. Farmer, paste. It's entertainer. This is farmer. Okay, you have advantage. I don't know what it'll be. I'll figure that out later. Okay. And then equipment. Equipment is going to be difficult again because it's a farmer. Different types of... Well, that's not true. You might specialise in crops and not have livestock, or even farmers who deal in crops usually have some sort of livestock. There might not be a lot. It might not be cows and, the likes of something like, what do you call it, sheep. But often they'll have a goat, or chickens are very common no matter what. There's usually something else that's going on. Okay, so farmer. Well, let's go through the skills first and narrow it down to what the skills are that they should definitely have. The problem with farmers is they have very physical jobs. There's no question about it that farming is one of the more physical activities that there are, even if you are using machinery. It's a very physical job, no matter what. So I could say that there is a place to be said that athletics would be a factor. Because strength is a huge aspect of being a farmer. Next, acrobatics, not really. Sleight of hand, no. Stealth, no. What are you doing? You're going to hide from your crops and your livestock? It's not going to work. Arcana, history, investigation, no. Nature, I can see that. I almost feel like nature is... I see why they've gone with animal handling and nature, because it kind of fills the two things. Nature for crops, animal handling for livestock. That's how they've tried to cover all their bases, haven't they? Kind of makes sense. Investigation, no. History, no. Nature, well, nature's already there. Religion, not really. Animal handling, absolutely. It's there. Insight, again, we're going to ignore insight. Insight as a skill for me does not exist. It's bollocks. Medicine, no, not really. You go get the vet if you're going to deal with that sort of thing. Perception, no, again, it's the super skill we're not going to put into a background. If they're going to pick up perception, they're going to have to do that through their class. And they can, and they will be able to, because I'll make sure that classes are built that way. Survival, farmer, survival. The way that survival is written in 5e, I don't think it fits. Honestly, I think it wouldn't work. If I look at how that is structured, I don't think that survival is the appropriate one, just because of how they've defined what survival is. Like, if you're really broad-minded, you could go anywhere with this. So here we go. Wisdom check, survival, tracking, hunting, wild game. It's not really a farmer. Farmers do go hunting, by the way. Guide your group through frozen wastelands. No, you're usually stuck on your piece of land. Although you could say, well, if you're a rancher, you've got to travel across large areas. Like, okay, identify signs, owlbear, survival, predicting the weather, or avoiding quicksand. I don't think the survival is really that. No, I think nature kind of fills that a lot better than survival does. So we'll leave survival alone. Deception, no. Intimidation, performance, persuasion. I can, although I would like to lean into athletics, I can see why they've gone with animal handling and nature. Those two skills, like whether you're a farmer of crops or livestock, you're probably going to need those particular skills every single time. Athletics is a sort of a byproduct. I feel like it's almost like I would want to give them that as well and give them 3, but I'm not going to do that, because then the optimizers will start thinking, oh, farmer, I want farmer because I get animal handling, nature, and athletics. Athletics doesn't come up in the game that much. Animal handling doesn't come up that much. Neither does nature, so I don't think they're necessarily going to care too much, but I don't know that there's any one of these that we can necessarily leave off. I think they've actually done a good job of selecting the skills. I think the way the skills are done are actually pretty spot on. I don't think Wizards of the Coast could have done better here. I actually think they did perfectly fine. Honestly, I think that's the right choice. Okay, tool proficiencies. Let's have a look at tool proficiencies. How am I doing? Okay, I'm running out of time, but we're still here. We're still going. So tool proficiencies. What are the tool proficiencies as a farmer you would tend to have? This is a difficult one. The really important ones. It's not going to be alchemist. It's not going to be brewer. It's not going to be calligrapher. Carpenter's tools, yes. And I guess the reason is it's all the fence making, it's all the shed making for various storage. Like, farmers do all that themselves. If you're really rich and you've got lots of money and you've got to build something that's outside of your skill level, you might not do it yourself. But look, I've seen farmers that don't have building qualifications and they put up a barn. They just go buy a kit set and put the thing together and they're done. They just need the tools to be able to put it together, right? That's carpenter's tools. So, cartographer, no, not really. Cobbler, no, that's for shoes. Cooking utensils, no. Glass blower, jeweler, leather, no. Mason, no. And you would need more carpenter's proficiency in carpenter tools more than masonry, no matter what, whether it's livestock or crops. Painter, no, because anybody can be a painter, frankly. They won't be very good at it, but, Potter, smith's tools. This is one where some farmers have learned how to smith their own stuff, but that's actually quite difficult. I think it's much more common for them to have carpentry proficiency and smith's tools if they're doing that. That would be very unusual to go smith's tools but not carpenter tools, which is why I would lean away from going smith's tools. So we'll leave that alone. Tinker, no. Weaver, woodcarver, no. Disguise kit, forgery kit, gaming sets, none of that really sort of makes sense. Musical instrument, Navigation, poisonous. Yeah, I think they've picked the right tool. I think the tool proficiency is spot on. I don't think there needs to be a choice. I think that is the one out of all of them that is probably the most important, that is far more instrumental to the functioning of a farmer narratively. Like, there isn't another one that is more important than that one, no matter what type of farmer you are. It's got to be that one. Okay. Languages is all good. So this is the tricky bit. It's going to be the farmer's feature. Advantage on what? Carpenter's tools? Probably not. Animal handling, nature? It could be either one. Heck, it could be both. It could be both. Or we could go with lean into one or the other. Do I want to give you a choice to go either way? Nature, animal handling. I feel like nature is probably a little bit more. It's just, how is nature used in the game? Like, when we start talking about nature, what are we really talking about in this game? Because if you just look at the word, it doesn't always tell you what you need to know about how they're using it. So nature for intelligence. Checks measuring your ability to recall lore about terrain, plants, animals. Okay, so the animal stuff is still there. The weather, natural cycles. There's no question. It's nature. It's nature. Yeah. You have advantage on nature skill checks. That's the one. Nature is the important one. The farmer's actually turning out to be pretty solid. Like, I'm pretty happy with the skill proficiencies and tool proficiencies. Just getting rid of the ability score improvements in the feat and leaning into the nature skill, because that's something you're going to be proficient in. That's actually making much more sense. Okay, all right. And then we got gear. Actually, I'm not particularly against this. I don't know that I like the idea of the sickle. I think the idea that they're putting the sickle in is not so much as a weapon, but as for cutting down their crops. They would use a sickle for crop cutting. But so you use a sickle not just for crop cutting, but for cutting down weeds that would get in the way. If you were a livestock person, you would use a sickle. Like, that would be quite common. But it would not be a small sickle. It would be a long instrument for taking out stuff really fast. So it's not a normal sickle. It would be a long-handled sickle, wouldn't it? Long. Sickle. But you also have the shorthand sickle as well. Yeah, that's the problem. No, we'll just leave it as sickle. Don't overthink it. I did stipulate that no weapons, but the sickle is actually not used as a weapon as such. It's used for cutting crops and getting rid of vegetation that's a pest. Carpenter's tools make sense. Healer's kit kind of makes sense too, actually. There's a lot of injuries that occur. An iron pot. A shovel. I'm not going to argue with a shovel. Every farmer needs a shovel. Traveller's clothes, and then they got 30 gold pieces. That's a lot. I mean, did they overcalculate that and give them too much, or too little? That's a good question. Where's my numbers? Let's get some numbers going. If I buy a carpenter's toolkit, it's only 8 GP. Oh, that's pretty cheap. That's only 8, and then a sickle. If we look for sickle. And I'll just use the weapon sickle as an example. Sickle is 1 gold. Oh, okay, it's not very much. And then a healer's kit. Well, the healer's kit, I'm pretty sure, if I remember right, that's only 5 gold. Like, I always encourage people to get a healer's kit no matter what. And I feel like you kind of have to have a first aid kit. It's like, it is the one, it's one of those things that you kind of need to have. So a healer's kit, I can see that, for bandaging yourself up and other people. An iron pot? Why specifically an iron pot and not a mess kit? I'm not even sure why you'd need an iron pot. What the heck would the iron pot be all about? They've got here iron pot. I don't understand. Where's a pot? Pot. Iron pot. They've 2 gold. What about a mess kit? How much is a mess kit? The mess kit is 2 silver. Why have we got an iron pot if the mess kit is... What the heck are they going to use the pot for? I don't understand why the pot's there. I think we ditched the pot. I think this is questionable. What the heck does the farmer need the pot for? How am I doing for time? I'm all right still. Okay, cool. Shovel. Shovel's 2 gold. Okay, so it's pretty cheap as well. All right. And then we've got traveller's clothes. Well, I'm not going to argue with the traveller's clothes. I think that probably makes sense. Traveller's clothes, that's 2 gold as well. So what does that come to? It doesn't come to very much, does it? It's pretty cheap, in fact. And the farmer's actually pretty solid, isn't it? As a background, if you get rid of those 2 other nonsense things and you add in the farm feature here, it's kind of looking pretty all right. So 8 plus 1 plus 5. My brain is no good, obviously, today. Okay, so we came to 18 gold, which would give us 32 gold pieces to spend on other stuff. Is there things that we're missing off this list? I don't understand why they've got the iron pot. I really don't get it. That's the 2 gold that's taking it down to 30. So I can see how they've structured it. I just don't understand why you'd go that way. Anyway, let's have a look at the gear. Is there anything missing? An abacus. You don't need that. Acid. Alchemist fire. No ammunition. Antitoxins. Too expensive. Can't do that anyway. Arcane focus is unnecessary. Backpack, ball bearings, no. Barrel, basket, bed roll. Bed roll, you're not necessarily travelling. You can, if you need that, you'll buy that yourself. I don't think that's necessarily a farmer thing. Blanket, block and tackle, book, glass bottle, bucket, caltrops, no. Candle, case, chain, chest, climber's kit, not really. Clothes, we've already got clothes. Component pouch, not a spellcaster. Crowbar. Do you know, I can't think of a single farmer who doesn't have a crowbar. The crowbar is such a useful tool. And I don't know that necessarily what do you call it? If we consider crowbar as something to add in, and it's cheap, I don't think that the carpenter's tools include a crowbar. But I don't think it's actually states here whether you get a crowbar. I don't think you do. I think as a piece of gear, I think it's more appropriate to have a crowbar than an iron pot. So guess what? I'm not even going to ask your permission, people. I'm not even going to look at what you say. I'm just going to put in a crowbar. The crowbar makes much more sense. Crowbar. You're always having to jimmy stuff. Next. Droid, focus, no. Fishing tackle. Maybe. Not necessarily. Flask, tank, head, grappling hook. No, not necessarily. Hammer. Sledgehammer. God. Every farmer has a sledgehammer. How many farmers don't have a sledgehammer? I'm putting a sledgehammer in there, dude. I don't know that is there a sledgehammer in the carpenter's tools? They probably have a hammer, but not a sledgehammer. It's really, really heavy. But I do feel like it's one of those things you would normally have. You would definitely have a sledgehammer. I can't think of a time when there's been a farmer who didn't have a sledgehammer, no matter what they did. So sledge. hammer. So that means if I add in crowbar and then sledgehammer, I got to deduct another 2 gold. So this is now 28 gold. Wow. Okay, keep going. Healer's kit, we've already got it. Makes sense to me. Holy symbols, no. Holy water, no. Hourglass, hunting traps, not really. You might, but I think they can just use their money to go and buy hunting traps if they feel they need to keep the wolves away. Jug, lamp, lantern. I guess you could say that there's a... no, because farmers usually operate within the daylight hours. They don't usually wander around with lanterns if they can help it. They might have to, but... okay, magnifying glass, manacles, no. Mess kit, let's leave that alone. I don't think... like, they're not going to be... they're not... leave that alone. No. Perfume, pick. Miner's pick, no, I don't think so. The shovel is probably going to do most of what you need to do. Poles, pouch, quiver, rams, robes, rope. You know, rope is a seriously important aspect for a farmer. I just don't know of a farmer who doesn't have rope available at some point. I'm going to add rope. Rope. And I also don't think I've come across any farmer who's worried about having really good rope. I would prefer to give them really good rope, but I also know that most of them don't give a toss. So, hempen, 50 feet. And if you do that, hempen rope 50 feet is only 1 gold instead of the 10 gold. So we're only deducting another 1 gold from here. That comes to 27. Hempen rope. Oops, didn't do that right. Let's try it again. Okay, rope and then sacks. Yeah, quite common, but I think they let you guys buy that stuff. Shovel, we've got it. Whistle, signal whistle. God, every farmer has a signal whistle. Every farmer has a signal whistle. I can't think. Like even when they don't have livestock, they've got a whistle, and they blow it. Let's put a signal whistle in. It's 5 copper. It's not even worth even worrying about deducting. Let's put it in. Signal whistle. Okay, signal whistle. Don't worry about the ring. Soap, nah. Spikes, spellbook, spyglass, no, too expensive. Tinderbox, whetstone, tinderbox. Yes, tinderbox, yes. I think tinderbox is definitely a thing. Let's put the tinderbox in. Farmers tend to make sure they have certain things. I think tinderbox is definitely going to be one of them. And then they can buy whatever torches and candles and decide if they want a lantern or whatever. Whetstone, sharpening stuff. Nah, well, it depends. Nah, we're getting too nuanced. I'm not going to worry about deducting. I think that's close enough. All right, let's go have a look because I probably should be packing myself up and getting myself to work. Let's have a look and see what you guys have had to say. You've probably all fallen asleep. Let's have a look. Anybody fallen asleep? Not yet. Farmer feature: animal handling if a ranch in nature is crops. I had thought that way, but after looking at the definition of how nature has worked, nature does the animal stuff as well. Do you know what I mean? So I don't think we need to worry about it. I mean, I could write it as nature or animal handling. I mean, I could write it that way. It probably wouldn't matter too much. It's not a big deal. Long sickle would be a scythe. Yeah, that's true. It would be a scythe. All of your B&W westerns with farmers and ranchers have them using a pot to cook. Yeah, I'm going to ignore... Look, I love black and white westerns and I love westerns, but I'm going to ignore farming in the Old West. I'm in New Zealand, and whatever the heck you guys were doing over there in America is not necessarily what they're doing in other parts of the world. So I'm going to leave that as one of your cultural things. How's that? You Americans, if you were insisted that's how it's going to be done, but I just don't get it. Yeah. Utensils, the farmer's wife. Yeah, you're not carrying pot around. Yeah, the farmer's wife has got that, not the farmer. Crowbar, yes, absolutely. And iron pot. No, I'm not putting the iron pot in. Crowbar makes more sense. But let's change the. I'm going to get rid of athletics. I don't think it's close enough. I'm not disputing that they don't have to do a lot of physical stuff, but I think the animal handling and the nature is much more important. And then farmers, you have advantage on nature or animal handling skill checks. I don't want to go and, I'm going to go or. You pick one or the other. So we'll go that way. I think that's probably the best way. Mark that off. Let's see this. I need to show you what I've done since I think I've nailed down the farmer. Oh. Do you think the criminal background for Dungeons & Dragons 2024 needs fixing? Undecided 50%. Fair enough. Yes, 30%. No, 10%. Just watching. It's different to what I got out of 10 votes. It's very different to the feedback I got last week on the artisan in terms of how people were thinking about that. It's interesting how people view stuff. Anyway, let's show you what I've got. So this is obviously going to be going on to Patreon, hopefully on the weekend when I am no longer at work and have time to sit down and put it all together, along with everything else that I've been working on in the first draft. So we have animal handling nature. I think they did a pretty good job. The carpenter's tools, I agree. We've added in languages. We've got rid of the ability score improvement. We've got rid of the silly feat. The farmer's feature is advantage on nature or animal handling skill checks. You pick one. Equipment, we have locked that in. Got an A or a B. One is sort of kitted you out. For your Americans, you can spend your $27 on an iron pot. And and the rest of us, we're going to go with the more important things, which is the sickle and the carpenter's tools, the crowbar, the rope, the sledgehammer, the shovel, the signal whistle, the tinderbox. Yeah, I think that's probably a better kit for a farmer than what they had before. So yeah, not too bad. I think that's all right. I think that works. Cool. Done. And we got 3 done, which is good news. Like, I didn't get lost in the weeds with the first one, which I was a little worried that might happen, getting lost in the weeds with the criminal. It is very easy to get lost in the weeds when you're trying to rebuild stuff. I'm pretty happy with that. It's really, again, I'm going to say it, unless you play test this stuff, it's just stuff you write on a page, right? So, yeah. We'll see how it plays out in the end. Anyway, I'm going to get out of here and say my normal stuff. I'll be back next week. I should be back next week. It depends, I guess. I've got painting on my roof taking place, so things can happen. But anyway, thank you to everybody who's been watching and listening. Thank you to everybody who took part in the poll. I do appreciate it. Thank you for doing that. And everybody in chat, particularly Jasper. Thank you, Jasper. I do appreciate your feedback. It certainly did help me lock down where I needed to go. And Zion Gray, thank you. Pale Rider, I appreciate your feedback as well. I may not have always agreed with everything that you suggested. And Prepare, Cook and Survive. It's been a while. Yeah, so thank you for commenting and giving your suggestions and ideas. That really did help. And huge thank you to all of my patrons who support me on Patreon. Because without you, I probably wouldn't do this anymore. And I will probably just disappear off the internet and just do my own stuff in my little office or in my back room or under a tree or something. So yeah, thank you so much for continuing to support me. I'll put all this stuff, as I said, onto Patreon. We'll be back next week. We've got a few more. I think it's 6 or 7 more backgrounds to deal with. Should be interesting. Yeah, I'm feeling confident we can get through this fairly soon. It should be only a couple more weeks and we can move on to something else, which probably means classes and species. probably going to be a mixture of it. Anyway, wherever you are in the world, whether it be the morning, the afternoon, or the night, please look after yourself, your family, and your friends. Be nice to your neighbours. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.